Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help you to crack the code of your sleep and dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening's dream is in three parts, and it looks at rebellious youth and hidden objects. So let's dive in and see what's going on. This dreamer reports that he was in a car with his father and wife, and they were going somewhere not specified, but they were heading towards the center of town, and which was actually deserted because the police were engaged in some kind of altercation with a bunch of young people. The young people were actually rioting. And the dreamer reports that one officer was actually in danger because he was on his own and surrounded by a group of young people. So that's the first part of the dream. Part two, the dreamer was with a friend, and they went to the communal hall of a house which had been converted into three apartments. And while unbeknownst to each other, they had hidden stuff beneath the floorboards in one area of the building, which gave access to the plumbing system, particularly to the stopcock. And the dreamer reports that he took from this hidden space under the floorboards some psychedelic magazines from the 90s, while his friend had stored some African objects which aren't specified. And there goes on to the next part of the dream. And the dreamer reports he was introducing a project that he was working on to two people, someone by the name of Goldie and someone by the name of Doc Scott, and explaining this project to the two of them that as both had an interest in graffiti as well as in DJing and producing music. Uh, the two of them had a record label together. And there the dream finishes. So, what exactly is going on? It doesn't seem like there's much connection between the three of these parts of the dream, these dreamlets, as I call them. But if dreams are dreamt together, either in the same night or in close proximity in time, like the next day or over a period of days, they are usually connected to each other in some way. So let's see what's going on and what connects these three bits of the dream. In the first part, the dreamer reports he was traveling with his father and wife to some unknown destination. Was it for business purposes? Was it for leisure purposes? Why? Where were they going? Why? What was the purpose of their travel? But they ended up in a place that was in the center of town that was actually deserted, and where there was actually the police and young people engaged in some kind of battle. What came to mind here for me was that there's a rebellious youth. You know, almost the duty of young people to rebel against their elders, but that is normal more or less. But rioting is a more violent protest against the system, and it's literally about overthrowing the old order, overturning things, which young people are known to do. Um, but what sparked this conflict is my question here. What were the young people actually rebelling or rioting about? And there was in during this altercation, one police officer actually became isolated and was surrounded by a group of young people. We don't know what actually happened, but one can possibly imagine. And this, I mean, this group of nebulous law enforcement officers actually becomes embodied literally in one person being surrounded by this gang um, with evil, perhaps, intent. What struck me about this is that it reminded me of the protests and riots that have happened in the last few years over different things, that Black Lives Matter, principally in more recent times, but climate change, all kinds of things. That it's generally been the young people at the forefront of these protests, whatever they may be. COVID is a bit different, but yet again, there's a lot of upheaval and protesting going on at the moment, and rioting in some places. Um, the the people, young ones in this case, are out of control. And I would ask the dreamer here, what may feel out of control of the dreamer, or could the youth themselves be representative of some part of the dreamer that wants to break out or riot or, or cause a ruckus over something or in their lives? Uh, do and another question that occurred to me here was, where do the sympathies of the dreamer lie in this particular part of the dream? Is it with the youth who are rebelling and rioting to get their point across, whatever that may have been, or with the police, or maybe with both, and taking a more even-handed stance? But we'll leave that for the moment and go to the second part of the dream, where this house had been divided into three separate flats or apartments. But the dreamer and his friend were actually in the communal area of the of this house. And for whatever reason, the dreamer and his friend had hidden things under the floorboards of this room, or a room rather, which could only be accessed by the plumbing system, particularly the stopcock, which turns the water off. And there's a couple of things with this. The houses quite often represent our aspects of our inner lives. The different parts of the house represent different parts of our lives. For example, in my case, the in real life as well as in dreams, the kitchen represents the heart of the house because everybody goes into it at some point. So it's a central point, it's a focal point. But this I would put to the dreamer that perhaps this house, which was divided into three apartments, may represent perhaps three different aspects of of the dreamer's life. There's also, you can look at this from a slightly different point of view, in that the number three also has religious connotations in the Holy Trinity, um, in particular. And I wonder if there's also perhaps some kind of spiritual issue or that may be going on. And the expression "a house divided against itself can't stand" came to me when this house had been divided into three parts. Um, so there's a few things here, and in addition, there's something about hidden treasures or um, lost treasures, recovered treasures here. And I wonder if there's some aspect of of the dreamer's life where there may be a recovery of sorts of something that was lost in the past and has been recovered now in the present. Uh, what I would ask is, what do these hidden objects that were found, dug up, or recovered represent for the dreamer? One thing that was a bit interesting was that the location of the objects themselves was actually near the plumbing system, particularly a stopcock, which I assume was to turn off the water running through the house. Um, but water here can represent any number of things, but principally, and this kind of goes back to that aspect of the three or Holy Trinity of cleansing or healing power of water. Now, looking at these hidden treasures or recovered treasures that the dreamer and his friend dug up, one, the dreamer's treasures were psychedelic magazines, which was quite interesting. And there's a couple of things that came up with that. And one is that these were magazines from the 90s in particular. But what came to me with this was that talking about the drug culture in the even the 60s and 70s, even where people were taking all kinds of things to be able to get in touch with the divine. Again, another perhaps spiritual or religious reference here. Um, but that's something that's not just a part of hippie culture. People have been taking stuff to try to get in touch with the divine, and still do in a number of indigenous cultures to today, starting with the ancient Egyptians with their blue lotus. They were getting high on that. So I just wonder if there's something about an interesting or quite tortuous relationship between spirituality and taking various substances for spiritual purposes, not just to for entertainment or recreation. The friend, however, had unspecified African objects, and my question here was, what were they? Were they perhaps to represent ancestors? Were they or some kind of sacred objects? What exactly were they? But what is common to both of these sets of objects is that they both can have religious or spiritual connotations, alternate to Western spirituality, perhaps, but no less sacred. And my question here for the dreamer here is whether there is the dreamer is experiencing some kind of shift in the way the dreamer perceives spirituality or practices religion. I just wonder, because there seems to be a theme running through this so far, anyway. And I would also ask if this dreamer's friend could actually be the dreamer's shadow, the unknown and unrecognized parts of the dreamer that the dreamer needs to reconnect with. Because it seems in a strange way that the friend is calling or the digging up of these things with the friend is calling the dreamer to look deeper or underneath, literally, the foundations of his house, or the house, or in this case, maybe a spiritual house, a spiritual home, to find forgotten or hidden truths. So that's something perhaps that the dreamer needs to look at. And the third part of the dream, I look at it as if the rebellious youth of the first part of the dream, I mean, rather the second part of the dream, um, No, sorry, the first part of the dream. I was right the first time. Duh. But the rebellious youth returns in this third section of the dream, but as an adult. An adult working on apparently a graffiti project, which involves DJing and record labels. I had to do a bit of homework here because I wasn't sure who the two people that were the dreamer was speaking to were, but the one is someone by the name of Goldie, who apparently appeared in a recent James Bond movie, and the other was let me see, somebody by the name of Doc Scott, who, if you're into drum and bass and jungle music, you would know who he is. So they both of them, however, apparently have an interest in graffiti, and they also jointly own a record label. And I just wonder, first of all, what was this project that the dreamer was introducing to these two people? What stage was it in? Were these people, two people, supposed to help or move forward this project in some way or become partners in it? Are these people known to the dreamer in waking life? And is I would ask here at this point, is there a situation or project that the dreamer may need help with or does need help with in order to move something forward? It may be personal, it may be professional, but is there some area of the dreamer's life that needs some assistance in order to be able to progress? Now, this couple that the the dreamer was speaking to, did these two people, well, these two people must have known each other since they jointly owned a record label. But what does DJing, graffiti, and record labels have to do, or have to do with this project, and what importance do they have to the dreamer? And the other thing that came up with to me with regard to these two people is that instead of looking at them as uh, perhaps male and female, but or as a couple as such, but as energy polarities, um, like yin and yang, so the opposite polarities. And I wonder if excuse me, they represent a balancing of energy for the dreamer. So, and for the dreamer, my question here is, does the dreamer in general feel more balanced in the dreamer's views or in the life, or just in some area or aspect of their life there's more balance, because this two-ness um, appears elsewhere. I mean, that in the first part of the dream, the dreamer was, well, there were the two people accompanying the dreamer, the father and the wife. There were two in, incidents in the writing, or a incidents where there were two sets of people involved, the police officer and the bunch of youths. The dreamer was with a friend, two people again. So there's this thing of pairs or things in perhaps in balance. Now, what connects all of these dreamlets? Well, there is a connection, but to be honest, it did take me a little bit to kind of see how they connected to each other. But you could think of it as the parts of the dream is like a sandwich. The sandwich consists of the future and the past. The future is represented by literally by the young people rebelling, overthrowing the old order and changing things. The past was the dreamer digging up old or hidden stuff from his past and bringing it from his youth and bringing it back into the present. But the third part of the sandwich is the future again, and it's incorporates the two prior parts in that the youthful part, um, from the rebelling youth, it incorporates the past and developing some knowledge and wisdom, and it's carrying both of that into something brand new in creating a new project with these two people. And I wonder if there is a part of the dreamer's life that feels where this feels to be true, where there's a syncretism, almost a joining of the some older or more youthful aspects of the dreamer with the more mature self, to go into the future, which should be how things work. But it also seems to be bringing a sense of balance, a two-ness, neither one nor the other, not either or, but both and I wonder, and I'll be fascinated to find out from the dreamer afterwards, if that is something that the dreamer is experiencing now, a shift in this a spiritual perspective, and in the process finding more balance. So there you have it, rebellious youths, hidden treasures, and hopefully some new balance being found for the dreamer. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.